canola market was stronger Friday morning as chart-based positioning and gains in outside markets provide support. Canola up 8 to over $13. November up $13.30 at $625.20 per ton. Malaysian palm oil, European rapeseed, and Chicago soy oil are all up on the day. That November contract is back above its 100-day moving average. That's bringing in additional speculative short covering. However, farmer selling is also thought to be coming forward at the highs, tempering the gains. The USDA releases its monthly supply-demand report later today, and any surprises in that report will likely sway the agricultural futures. Canadian markets will also be closed this Monday for Thanksgiving, and positioning ahead of the weekend could account for some of today's trade. In the U.S., soybean, corn, and wheat futures are all higher. Soybeans underpinned by dryness concerns in Brazil, with forecasted rains now expected to miss some key soybean growing regions. November soybeans up 7 cents at $10.22 per bushel. Average trade guesses ahead of today's USDA report are for U.S. soybean yields to hold steady or be revised slightly lower from the September forecast. Only minor adjustments to the usage and stocks numbers are expected. The USDA announced private export sales this morning of 132,000 tons of soybeans to unknown destinations. Corn, boosted by solid export demand and dryness concerns in South America. December up 2 cents at $4.20 per bushel. Some market participants expect a downward revision to U.S. corn yields in today's report, as drier weather conditions have led to lighter bushel weights. Private export sales of more than 500,000 tons of U.S. corn to unknown destinations were announced this morning. Wheat is mostly higher now after trading mixed overnight. Minneapolis spring wheat up a penny in December at $6.51 per bushel. Kansas City 3 cents higher in the December contract at $6.14 per bushel. And Chicago soft wheat up 5 cents in December at $6.09 per bushel. More Russian attacks on Ukrainian grain handling facilities were reported. That's keeping caution in the wheat market. Drought in Russia is also hampering winter wheat seeding there, while parts of the U.S. plains are also in need of moisture. That's a look at the ICE futures and U.S. markets for Friday, October 11th. In Winnipeg, for MarketsFarm.com, I'm Phil Franz-Warkentin.
Back in 1989, Butler Farm Equipment began providing industry-leading equipment and a top-notch service. 35 years later, they're still going strong. See them for New Holland tractors, balers, skid steers, mowers, and snow removal equipment for farms, construction, oil and gas industry, as well as hobby farms and acreages. Plus, get fall savings on snow removal equipment and remaining zero-turn lawn mowers. Butler Farm Equipment, decades of delivering great service in the Peace region. Visit butlerfarmequipment.ca.
The opinions expressed on this show do not represent those of the station. If you've missed any of the shows, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Welcome to This Week in the Peace, a show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace region. Here's your hosts, Dub Craig and Steve Berard.
Welcome to This Week in the Peace. Today we're speaking with the two candidates for Peace River North in the upcoming BC Provincial Election. Stay tuned for my chat with Conservative Party of BC candidate Jordan Kealy in a little while.
Yes, but first, I would like to welcome the independent candidate and incumbent Dan Davies to the show this morning. Dan, welcome to This Week in the Peace.
Good morning, Dub.
Thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
I'll make sure I get your name up here on the little bar here first. I was to talk about it. Anyway, we're going to go over a few of the things that, you said that were really kind of stood out to me kind of in the all candidates forum the other night, because of course you were restricted by time and by kind of moving on. So let's talk about the Taylor Bridge first. Everyone's
never heard of
subject.
it. Taylor Bridge.
You made a statement about shovels in the ground in 2006, I believe, or
2026.
2026, pardon me.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I hadn't heard that date before. I know things have been moving along kind of closer, and we've had several discussions with you and other kind of stakeholders over the years about this process that's been going on and on. Tell us a bit more about what you meant about that and sort of where you get that date from, that year, in terms of a possibility that this project might actually be happening.
Well, to me, it's a realistic date.
Yeah.
There's for the last couple of years, I've lost track of how many meetings I've had with the minister. I brought it up numerous times in the House during question period. Locally met with MOT across the province on all levels. It's been a huge priority of mine, making sure that this project is continuing to move forward. And, over the last 7 years, now in the last few years, we've seen, quite frankly, millions of dollars spent on geotechnical studies. There's been some engineering. There's been lots of little pieces of planning done. So when we're sitting there, and it is a priority. Right. And we've heard this from government that, yes, this is a priority. This is a priority where we haven't lost sight of it. So I'm, if my plan is to continue pushing to make sure that we get a sound date. And 2026, that's a couple of years from now. It's not unreasonable with the work that's been done. The other piece is to where we are looking, and this is, I think, is one of the super strengths, if I will, of an independent, is if it is near a hung parliament, which it's looking like right now, complete tie. This will be one of the negotiating tools that I will, be bringing forward as an independent. If I'm going to be supporting the Conservatives moving forward on either it's supporting legislation or supporting them as a party to form government. Again, that is one of the strengths in as an independent where it looks like it's going to be close to a tie.
Now, if you win the election, as you say, you'll be sitting as an independent, at least at the start. Do you think that timeline changes depending on who wins? If we have an NDP majority again, or even if we have a Conservative majority, do you think there's a difference, or do you think both kind of parties, I know we're all kind of against each other right now, but do you think that timeline is realistic depending, no matter
and
who's
I do. I really do think it's realistic. And, I go back on to, again, my experience, my leadership that I've demonstrated over the last years. By nature, the legislature is adversarial, but there's a lot of relationships. At the end of the day, whoever's government, they have to govern for the province of British Columbia. And, I'm very proud of the relationships that I've built with everybody in the Legislative Assembly. And I think that is a huge strength when we're talking about being able to go into, pretty much anyone's office and have a conversation. And we can get a lot done over a cup of coffee as opposed to a fist fight. And I've believed in that. I've moved a lot of things forward. We've had a lot of success, about, whether we're looking at the Hudson's Hope Water Treatment Center, to which, I've been very involved with, to the provincial retina program that was, the funding was going to be near cut, to bring in the nurse program here. Those are things that have been done through relationship building, and that demonstrated, that experience demonstration that I've been able to show, and through my relationships that I have. And regardless of who forms government, that is what I'm going to be leaning on, is that experience.
Okay. Let's switch the gears now to Soji a bit. Your answer, I thought anyway, wasn't super clear exactly kind of what your stance on it is, at least compared to Jordan Kealy and the BC Conservative Party. I know John Rustad's been saying for some time, it's an ideology. We want to get rid of it. It doesn't belong in schools. You seemed a lot more like, well, I think there's stuff to work with there, but it needs to be improved. Can you kind of explain more what you mean about that?
Well, and this is what I've heard a couple of things now, throwing out ICBC, throwing out SOGI, and we need to be very cautious about just throwing out these big policies, right? Often you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, if you will. Let's look at what's in it. What is the problem? What can we improve on? I think if we go back to basics, SOGI's been in the schools and it's become a buzzword now, right? And, I'm not arguing that there has been inappropriate things. We even saw that in Fort Nelson, last year with the, those playing cards that were given out by public health in the school. And that's not appropriate. And I think when we start seeing those things in our school system throughout the province, that's when people think, well, geez, where are we going to direct our blame? And SOGI, I think, became that, where a lot of that blame went. I think we need to get back to engaging parents, having parents involved in the education system, talking with the principal, talking with their teacher, engaging with the trustees and the public school boards, and understanding. First of all, any parent can withdraw their student when it comes to anything like that. The other part, though, I think, which is kind of the responsibility of our school system, is age appropriateness. There are certain things that a grade 1 or a grade 2 person should not be learning, as opposed to what someone is in grade 11 learning. So we need to be looking at the material. And again, it is not curriculum. It is an aid for teachers, to teach, all the facets of bullying. Because bullying happens to queer kids. It happens to chubby kids. It happens. It's all across the board. This is just a tool to make sure that we are protecting all of our kids in our schools. And quite frankly, I'm going to stand up, to any bully and support any kind of a program that reduces any bullying in the schools.
Okay. I want to talk again about, you already mentioned it too, the sort of the new powers that independent candidates, or independent members, I should say, have in the legislature that you said has changed kind of in the last, I suppose, session under the kind of current administration. You made a couple claims suggesting that as a member in a party that's in opposition, you only were able to kind of ask a question. I think you said once every
session, roughly 2 a year,
essentially. But then you said as an independent that would come to like once every 2 weeks or something instead. First of all, I tried to find that information. I couldn't. That could be just on me being bad at researching. But I want you to explain more why it is that suddenly independents get more questions than people who are actually in the party that had the second most number of seats and the amount of votes that they got as compared to an independent.
So you got to look at a couple things here. The precedent goes to the official opposition, right? That they get the most question as the bulk of questions. The Legislative Assembly and all parliaments across the country work on precedents, standing orders, things that all of a sudden become the norm. So what we've seen over the last couple of years is a change in how the question period works. So, for instance, I was a front bencher. I wasn't part of there was a QP team. Your kind of senior people that are asking, the Shirley Bonds, the leader of the opposition, the House leader, are your main ones that ask questions almost every day.
Yeah.
And then every now and again, they'd, throw you a little chunk of fat to, that you get your 1 or 2 questions a year, one every session. And it was always around a theme because the party directs a theme that you're focusing on. It might be healthcare, it might be, decriminalization, whatever the theme is that week. So, Dan, here's your question this week. And it's your question that's been written for you by the party. That's just the way it is. And anybody who believes and is naive enough to think that they're going to have free reign to do whatever they want, it's not realistic. We are in a party system. And that is basically what dictates, how the Legislative Assembly works in a partisan system. So as independents, what we've seen over the last couple of years is the independents, and there's been Adam Walker and Selena Robinson in the last session, were now brought into the fold on question period, asking a question every second week. Every second week, the independents were up asking questions. And that became the norm. That now became the standing order in the Legislative Assembly.
I see.
Now, the opposition still gets the bulk of the questions. But we were even complaining when we were in opposition because, even when, and now it's 2 people can form a party. So you had the BC Conservatives there with John and Bruce. They were in the question cycle every single day with only 2. And then you had an independent every second week. And so the day that the independents were asking their questions, the official opposition only got 4 questions during question period. So it has changed. Now we're going from where I was a front bencher, not in the QP team, but just a regular front bencher with a large shadow ministry.
Yeah.
I was getting 1 question a session, maybe 3 if there was a big issue happening.
Yeah.
Now it's every second week that amounts to 14. So that is where the increase is coming from. Will it look a little different if there's 4 or 5 independents? Again, the legislative's always evolving, always changing.
I see. Okay. I guess my second question about this is, you imagine, as you say, a hung parliament where it's very close and suddenly independent votes really matter because they could swing either way and, cause the government to fall or support the government, depending on what happens, right? In the case of a majority situation where you still get kind of elected as an independent, are you willing to say what your plan is then in terms of, do you join a party so then you kind of recover some of the power that you don't have now as an independent in a legislature where the government can pass bills as it likes, essentially?
So first and foremost, I will only do what's right for this region. And, Richard Neufeld, when he was elected as a reformer, there was only 2 of them. He was actually elected as an independent. Granted, he was part of a name, but you needed 4 people to actually have official party status. So him and Jack Weisgerber were elected into the Legislative Assembly as independents. And quite frankly, they did a lot. He had a huge paving program that came up. There was, worked again. And Richard had a lot of relationships, very similar to what I have, is that the ability to work cross lines. But Richard Neufeld did leave the Reform Party and at the time joined the BC Liberals, who were in government. And that was as a result of talking to people here in the riding. And he was hearing over and over again, Richard, you need to join the BC Liberals. And so Richard took it, literally the advice of his riding, and did that.
Okay.
That would be what I would be doing as well. It will not be going to the NDP. And I want to make that very clear.
Okay.
That's just not who I am.
No.
They're good people, but that's not who I am. I don't believe in many of their policies. So my alliances will always be on the Conservative side. And whether I've joined the BC Conservatives or I'm just sitting as an independent with conservative values, you know where my votes are going to be.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to be on the right side.
Now, one last one I want to ask you about, because we got just about a minute left here. I know you and Jordan, at least when it came across in the All Candidates Forum, you agreed on a lot of things. And if you didn't agree 100%, it was like 80, 90% on most things, right? There's many people in the piece who are progressive voters. Not a majority, but they are there, who really at this moment only have a paper NDP candidate to vote for. He never returned our calls. He never said no thanks. He just said
he's
nothing.
a staffer in Victoria.
Exactly, right? What do you say to those voters who, as they head to the ballot box, who might be thinking, I want to vote NDP, or I want to spoil my ballot because my choice is between a conservative and somebody who's more conservative? What do you say to them that says, maybe you ought to throw your vote my way? I got you.
Yeah. I really do think, and there's statistics out there. Most Canadians are kind of that center right. They weave the middle. That's probably 70% of Canadians. And I don't think, it might be a little different up here, but not much. Certainly in the city of Fort St. John, where I'm born and raised, I think people are fiscal conservatives. They're free enterprise. They want a good job. They want lower taxes. They want to have a paycheck for their families. All the other stuff, just let me work, right? Let me work. And I think that's kind of where I am. And, if even people that are kind of on the NDP side or on the left side, they're still centrists, I think, up here. I think look at the platforms of the candidates that are running in Peace River North. Don't waste your vote on a candidate who's never been to Fort St. John or a candidate who's never been out of the Lower Mainland. It's a paper candidate. Make sure you invest. Make that vote count. Call me. Reach out to my office. I'll have a conversation. I will go to your groups, regardless of who they are, and have these conversations. Know who you're voting for. This is an election probably unlike, well, it's not probably, it is unlike any election probably in British Columbia's history.
Like every BC election.
Like every BC election. But, there's a ton of independents running. Yeah. We've got, a party, the official opposition that dissolved, just a mere 7 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like you're right. I mean, BC politics is crazy, but man, we just took it to a whole new level. So get involved, learn about the candidates, learn who's closest to your values, who represent. I am not going to get everyone. I know that. I even people that are center right, I won't agree with them on everything. Mm-hmm. But we could probably find 70 or 80% of things that we can agree on. Find the right candidate, put the X beside the right candidate. Hopefully that's Dan Davies. But most importantly, get out and vote. Get out and vote.
All right, Dan. Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for making some time for us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. And dandavies.ca if you want to dig into finding out more information.
All right, that's Dan Davies, independent candidate for Peace River North. We'll be right back with Steve's conversation with BC Conservative candidate Jordan Kealy right after this on This Week in the Peace.
Hey, you.
Me?
Yeah, you. What are you doing? You don't belong here.
I know. I think I'm lost.
Well, there's no way out, sister. You're stuck in here with trash like us now.
Don't throw your recyclables where they don't belong. Bring them to FSJ Return It. Cans, plastic bottles, milk jugs, juice cartons, none of them belong in the trash. Recycle them today at FSJ Return It. Open 6 days a week on 93rd Avenue in Fort St. John.
Site C reservoir filling is continuing between Fort St. John and Hudson's Hope. Water levels are rising, and there are new hazards on the water and shoreline. BC Hydro is monitoring for floating wood debris and slope stability. All public boat launches on the reservoir are closed. Please stay off the reservoir and its tributaries and away from the shoreline during filling and for at least 1 year after. Learn more about reservoir safety at sitecproject.com.
Mobil One Lube Express in Fort St. John is proud to serve this amazing community and proud to support our oil and gas industries.
See Mobil One Lube Express for oil changes, transmission fluid changes, touchless car wash, and more. Mobil One Lube Express,
a proud supporter of the oil and gas industries.
Get ready to meet your new best friend with the Bone and Biscuit Best Buddy. Every Tuesday at 3:40, we'll sit down with a member of the local SPCA and Trevor from the Bone and Biscuit to show off an adoptable pet. It could be a playful pup, a cuddly kitten, or another special rescue that are looking for their forever home. We'll give you instructions and tips on how to adopt, what to look forward to, and help you get your new best buddy home. It's the all-new Bone and Biscuit Best Buddy, every Tuesday at 3:40, and only on 100.1 Moose FM.
At Peaceful Pages, not only will you find a large selection of Bibles, devotionals, and faith-based books, but they also carry a collection of Christian clothing, home decor, giftware, and jewelry. Peaceful Pages Christian Bookstore, open Monday to Saturday on 101st Ave, Fort St. John.
Moose Country weather.
It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Sunny day today. We get to a high of 11 with a bit of wind, southwest 20 gusting to 40. Tonight, clear sky, a low of -1. Tomorrow, mainly sunny, high of 16. Wind southeast 30 gusting to 50 late in the morning. Sunday, sunny and 21. And Thanksgiving Monday, cloudy, but a high of 20.
You can watch this show live on Facebook. Catch the replays at Energeticcity.ca or be part of the show by texting your thoughts to the Fort City Chrysler line at 250-787-2222.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Berard. Jordan Kealy, the candidate for the Conservative Party of BC for Peace River North, unfortunately wasn't able to come into the studio live today for our interview. I sat down with him yesterday afternoon to discuss his perspective on Wednesday's All Candidates Forum. Jordan, thank you so much for taking some time today to come out for this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
So first, just off the top of your head, it's, as we're recording this, it's about a day after the forum. How do you think it went for you?
I think it went pretty good. Being able to spar back and forth with a seasoned politician, it's a learning experience. I think at first I got thrown off that originally I thought that the opening and closings would be 5 minutes, so I was prepared to bring in a lot of really good info, and then I had to cut it down really quickly impromptu. So I think once I got past that, then I started to find my footing, and for this just being my first major debate, I think I handled myself very well, and I show that I can be confident, that I can be the strong voice for this region,
right,
and ensure that my constituents are represented.
For sure, absolutely. We have a couple things we want to ask you, but before we do that, is there anything that happened at the debate that you went over or that Davies mentioned that you want to respond to, expand on, anything like that?
I think the biggest thing is that I'm finding people that are confused that when you have two candidates that are on the right and they're debating back and forth, and essentially the platform is copied directly from ours almost in every way, and it's something that I've been using for almost a year now. I think that can make it challenging, but then I also think that I have provided that I am committed, and that my party and our team is committed to making these things happen that we're promising. Whereas when you're an independent, you can pretty much say anything you want, but then follow up with nothing.
Right.
So we're committed to make these major items happen. When we form a majority government, our primary goal is to get the key people into folio positions and start to make our way of life better. And I would love it if I could actually be in one of those positions, and I could help bring that kind of power back to our region. And it's using, for example, the agriculture minister, I would love being able to fill that portfolio. It's a passion of mine. I have a farm myself. I know the communities, and I think it's being able to have that representation up in the north here. We haven't had it in a long time, and there's no way that an independent can actually fulfill that the same manner, especially when my team is going to be full of cabinet ministers, and we can have a premier that actually what's really amazing is that he can be the first premier from the north. So he knows the issues in the north. He knows what the people are like in the north. He's been up into Fort St. John twice now and talking to constituents, and he knows the problems. He can see the Taylor Bridge. He knows that it needs to get replaced in a dire way. You have representation in another way. If the NDP get back into power again, they don't even really know where we live. We need to have strong representation, and that is something that I can offer, our team can offer, and our party leader can offer.
I want to circle back a bit to you talking about Dan Davies having a very similar platform to you. There's been a little bit of discussion here and there, especially on social media, a lot of people talking about the concept of splitting the vote. Tell me a little bit about where you stand on that and whether you think that's a serious discussion.
I think it's very serious. When it comes to splitting the vote, people normally think about it a certain way with other parties. Right now, we have a group of independents that are determined to try and form a minority government and try and force sway in different ways. That what we need, and what is absolutely vital that we have, is that we have a majority government to take the place and not have independents come in different scenarios. So this isn't about the two candidates squaring off with similar platforms. This is about having the candidate, the team, and the party, and the leader that can actually make these differences happen. Not just try and be in a little broker advocation manner.
Yeah, for sure. One of the other things, and you mentioned this as well, talking about the Taylor Bridge, there's been some concern, obviously, for the Conservative Party. They have to prioritize, they have to set priorities all over the province. And there's been some discussion about where the Taylor Bridge actually lies on the Conservative Party's priority list. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think when it comes to key infrastructure improvements, there's a lot of variables that are in place as to how projects get approached and where they're the current stages that they're in. I can't give a commitment that it is going to happen instantly right away, first in line. But what I can say is that we drive through Taylor all the time. We go over that bridge all the time. It's a vital route. It has been a vital route for a very long time. We do not want to see that bridge end up like the first bridge. It's John Rustad has committed twice now in the times that he's been up here. When he's driven over that bridge, he has said that it needs to be replaced, and I believe him. That how often do we have the leader of a party that will take the time to drive up here and see the scenery, see what our rural area is like? That's the kind of leadership that we have with John Rustad, and it's it can only happen in our party, where a leader actually cares about the North. So he is committed to make sure that bridge is going to be replaced, and I have faith that he will do that. And I will push and advocate, and I'm a big guy. I can push a lot of weight, so I'm going to make sure that I apply that pressure if I have to, and I will do that in any scenario where I have to fight for our constituents' best interests. And I believe that I've done that in my role as Area B Director, that I always represent my constituents and push for what's best for them. And I'm excited to be able to make this happen.
Tell me a bit, you mentioned yourself, you own a farm, you're a farmer yourself. That's kind of a unique perspective for a member of the Legislative Assembly. Tell me a bit about the kinds of policies and changes that you would advocate for having that background in agriculture.
I'm not your standard politician in any way. I didn't go to university to study about it or have a PhD in it. I actually got involved in politics because I want to make a difference. I wasn't sure when I first got in as the local area director for Area B in the Peace Region. I didn't know how well I'd be able to do it. And I actually surprised myself how fast I adapted to be able to catch on and do the role. And I think that I have demonstrated to a lot of people that I can jump up onto a stage and I can hold my own with a seasoned politician. Now, I'm not saying that I did it perfectly. There's things that I could prove on. I think when we got thrown off with the time frame of the 3 and 5 minutes, it rattled me a bit, and I managed to gain my composure and then get back down to business. And I really think that when it comes to becoming a provincial MLA, the support network that I have, no independent will have that. And I really think that ultimately when it comes down to it, we need a majority government, and the Conservative Party of BC is the only one that can offer that to get the NDP out. So when I emphasize that if you vote for anybody else, even if it's an independent, you're encouraging splitting the vote. It may not split it as much here, but what it will do is that in other ridings where it is a tighter race, we need to make sure that we get our candidates through, that we can form a majority government. And right now it's looking good that we can actually make that happen. But we have to educate voters that it does make a difference on who you vote for. And the only way we're going to get the NDP out is if you vote for the Conservative Party of BC. And that's even been demonstrated last night at the debate. I read out a quote from a previous premier that Gordon Campbell said that he fully endorses our party. Bob Zimmer endorsed our party. He said that it's Pierre Poilievre is wanting to support our party, and that we are the only way to get the NDP out. Mm-hmm. So if you want the carbon tax to get rid of the carbon tax and alleviate the pressures in our way of life, if you want to get rid of inflation, if you want a fiscal Conservative Party that can bring down our debts, one of the biggest things that I offer when I approach things, especially being from the perspective of a farmer, having my own business, dealing with a lot of customers, is that I can look at things from a different perspective. I have lived a life, and I have a lot of different benefits that I can bring. The people around me that I help represent and advocate for on a regular basis, even before being a politician, I can bring all of that with me, that I'm not just a career politician. And the amazing thing is that being a mechanic, I'm not afraid of hard work and getting my hands dirty. And one of the things that when you can't fix something and you struggle to try and make something happen, a good mechanic like myself will find another way to fix it. And I believe that in government there are always different ways to be able to accomplish our goals, and I will be committed to represent my constituents no matter what.
For sure, yeah. One of the other things that you touched on briefly during the All Candidates Forum that I would love to get some more information on, there was a little bit of talk of the Conservative Party wanting to get rid of ICBC. Tell me a bit about the rationale behind that and some of the alternative systems that you guys are talking about.
Yeah, getting rid of ICBC, when you look at the Crown corporations, they've all got their red tape and bureaucracy that's involved in them. I think that eventually it gets to a certain point where the corporation isn't beneficial. And I see that in different scenarios. Originally, we were looking at just getting rid of the no fault.
Right.
Where even personally myself, that if that no fault was in place with what happened with my wife when she got into a vehicle accident, it would have left us with no lawyer, and it probably would have left us with no proper care going on further on in life. People deserve to be able to have an advocate for them, and I think that's a great thing about that side. I mentioned that in the debate because there's a lot of people that fall into that scenario, whether or not it's with ICBC or WCB. That we have to put people first, and our party is committed to that. When it comes to looking at privatization and other alternatives, we're going to look at it in a way that is practical and beneficial to people first. And I think when we look at a lot of crown corporations trying to get rid of that red tape, the bureaucracy, and streamline systems, so then they start to benefit us again in a practical way that's using common sense. And that's probably another thing that's very different about me compared to most politicians, is that I actually have common sense. On a regular basis, I use it all the time on my farm and as a mechanic. So sometimes a lot of politicians really don't see the basic ways to make things work, and sometimes simpler is better.
We're just about running out of time here. If you have a message for your constituents, voters here in the Peace region, what would you say to them? Is there anything else you want to go over really quickly while we still have you here? For the next couple of minutes here, the room is yours.
Sure. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I'm committed to ensuring our residents have a voice, and a loud voice. I think I've got a pretty loud voice. I can push when I need to, and a large presence for being down in Victoria. I'm no stranger to the Lower Mainland. I grew up there originally. I know what I'm getting myself into. I know what it's like to be away from home. It's been a regular thing for me, working 1 week in, 1 week out. I think I can handle that. This election isn't about choosing between two candidates with similar values. It's about stopping the NDP. The destruction of northern communities and our way of life, the degradation of our communities when we see the resource sector pretty much being halted, and you see sawmills being closed down. These are things that are near and dear to my heart, that I see it affect people around me that I care about. I also want to say that I want to say a thank you to all of my volunteers and all the people that are supporting me through this. They're the main reason why I'm actually able to do this. And even when it comes to lawn signs, I had 500 lawn signs, and they're all gone. We have more people requesting them. I want to encourage people to go out and vote. It makes a big difference. And if you're looking, the only choice that we have to get rid of the NDP is the Conservative Party of BC. I really believe in this party. I believe in its leader. I believe it matches my morals and values. And I think that when I make a promise, I am genuine and transparent about what I'm going to deliver. And I don't think you can find a single person in Area B that I currently represent that can turn around and say that I don't actually try hard for my constituents. I push as hard as I can to make things happen, and I try and find every avenue to go down. So I just want to turn around and say that let's get rid of the NDP. When you see me on the ballot, vote for Jordan Kealy. I'm the only Conservative Party of BC candidate in the North, and don't let that confuse you with what else you hear.
Election day is October 19th. If you want details for where to vote, how to vote, when to vote, advance voting, you can check out Energeticcity.ca. Jordan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Jordan Kealy of the Conservative Party of BC. Thanks again to Dan Davies for joining us earlier on This Week in the Peace, and thank you for tuning in.
Advance voting for the election is available now at the Fort St. John Seniors Hall daily from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. until October 16th. They will be closed for Thanksgiving Monday, though. In Taylor, you can advance vote today at the Taylor Community Hall and also tomorrow, I should say, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. As you just heard Steve say, if you want more information about where to vote and everything we've been covering in this election campaign, you can head over to energeticcity.ca/election. That's our show. I'm Dub Craig.
And I'm Steve Berard. Be well.
Join us again next Friday morning at 10 for another edition of This Week in the Peace, your weekly talk show dedicated to the people, events, and news of BC's Peace Region. Or you can listen to this podcast again at Energeticcity.